Welcome back. Hey, thank you so much for coming back to our little podcast, Growing with the Greens. And if this is your first time here, welcome to you as well.
Yes.
So I'm Janae, and this is
Tanya.
And we are Growing with the Greens. So welcome to our podcast. So this is episode
3.
Episode 3. Yeah. I'm happy that we've gotten to episode 3.
I know,
like for real.
It's been an exciting journey thus far.
Three doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're coming from like not being sure about what you're going to do, and then you build that confidence of like, nah, this is what we're supposed to do.
Yes.
3 is
the prep time I think takes a lot also. So I think being able to prep everything, know what you want to talk about, know who your audience is, all that takes time. So when you're actually doing it and you're in the moment, it just feels good to know like, wow, we're actually doing this. We're even on episode 3 right now. It's exciting.
It's exciting. It's definitely exciting. So, we thank you guys. Yes. We thank you for the likes, the shares, the comments that we've been receiving from people.
Yes.
We definitely appreciate it. So please continue. Subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can make sure that you get all of our updates when our videos come out. And then go over to Instagram and make sure that you're following us over on Instagram. Our tag is Growing with the Greens 21.
Yes.
So make sure you do that.
Yes, and we're excited now. So now we're in episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
Last episode, we discussed about building self-love and acceptance for yourself and how we got through that journey, which was an exciting thing for us to share some of the things we didn't even know about each other. So even being in this platform and sharing these things that we didn't know about ourselves was just something that enhanced our relationship.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't know, like, there's a few things that came out about your, self-acceptance journey that I didn't even know. And it was really eye-opening for me, and I appreciated, hearing that for the first time. So it was great.
But going into that, being able to then, that enhanced our relationship. So this is the next episode that we have where it's building healthy relationships, because that also takes time and energy and self-reflection to be able to see who's in your corner. And I want to mention, I know we discussed a little bit last week, and after the episode was over, we thought about some things that we reflected on.
Yeah.
To understand that, remember we were talking about that you don't have to necessarily love yourself in order for somebody else to love you. Like, we don't want to give that message out, but more so being able to understand that it's helpful to know yourself, to know your likes, to know what you don't like, to have people in your life. But I must say, it did happen to me backwards a little bit, because like I said, the community that I built here in Virginia has helped me in my journey to self-reflect on myself and self-worth and my love. And I think if it wasn't for that community that I built here, who knows if, I would have had that experience now,
Yeah, I take that to heart, because I know I've personally experienced, I guess, going into someone's life that they felt like that they didn't know how to love themselves. But because of the love I showed them, they were able to understand what it meant to better love themselves.
Exactly.
And I'm not taking credit for like, I've, changed people's lives. But it was a conversation that I had with a person that they really didn't understand what true love was until I came into their lives. And then they were able to know that, we weren't even a good mix, because the way that I loved them, they knew that it wasn't like the love that they were ready for.
Right.
And it wasn't even like, this was a friendship, right? Okay. This was a friendship. It wasn't even it was a platonic friendship. And they really just was like, dang, like I still have some work to do on myself. And I know that I need to be loved in this type of way. And right now, you cannot give me that type of love. You cannot give me that type of attention.
Right.
So because of that, we kind of had to split our part.
Gotcha,
We had to
gotcha.
split, but it was off of like them needing to grow
Right,
more and
right,
being more self-aware, more self-acceptance of who they were, and I think a lot of times with that, sometimes it could be because of our past
right. Yes,
that comes
absolutely.
into our present that either like brings people together
Right,
in some form of relationships
right.
or make us bond because of that past trauma that we've had.
Exactly. Bond is what you said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think initially we connect because of something that we've experienced, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that build us up in connection. But then we end up finding out, I guess,
Yeah.
throughout it is like, yeah, we might have connected with this,
Yeah.
but do we connect with all the other things in our
Yeah.
lives, right?
That
Yeah.
just that puts me into the mind of that. I was watching a podcast. I wish I could remember the lady's name. Because it was a great podcast. I'll put it in the comments when I go look her up. But she expressed that today.
Yeah.
When I was looking at her, it was kind of a reflection on the bonds that we make with people, and especially when we're trying to get friends, some type of friendships or some type of relationship as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
that the commonality of things that happen may not be in a positive outlook.
Right.
It may not
Yes.
be that we're coming together positively, So that thing that kind of hit me, it was like, oh
Yeah.
my goodness, like all relationships are not built off of a positive energy.
Right, right. And the similarities is overall connection. What we yearn for is connection. So even if, like you said, it's a negative connection, it's
It's a
still
connection.
a connection.
It's a
I don't feel
connection.
alone.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So, and that's where the trauma is that
Yes.
from your point of view, is that where
No.
trauma bonding comes from?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Being able to, and you said it exactly. What you have said, that is an example of a trauma bond, right? I'm able to connect with you in a way where you can understand my pain,
Okay.
my hurt, right? Yeah. And I don't feel judged, shamed, or none of that type of stuff. I can come to you with that, right?
Okay.
But initially, that's how the connection was made. But then we learn later on that we still have our own issues to really work on, and that's why we can't connect at another level.
Wow.
Yeah,
like
it's interesting.
You really don't think that this much thinking or thought goes into a relationship.
Right.
Any type of relationship, like a friendship, a family, family relationships, partnerships, even businesses. Like, I feel that you don't think that far ahead.
Right.
Of like,
right.
why am I connecting with this person? And is this connection authentic enough for it to carry us through?
Right. You know what? I think we don't think about these things because we're in the midst of things. We're at a bar, we're at a restaurant, we're at work, right? And we're just going with the flow. We're not even really considering some of these things. But I think I have more connections and more deeper connections now because I have been able to implement those thoughts into my, so those thoughts into myself to be able to realize, what is this person given to me? Is there reciprocity here, right?
Okay.
In the relationship. So, and I think that's, I guess, the first question that we have, right? Which kind of came into this. You came into it perfectly.
Of course I did. I came into it perfectly.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Okay.
That's what she said.
She be trying, y'all. Y'all saw last week, yo. She be trying. But somebody did drop in the comment from our last show, and I appreciate you. You dropped in saying what the song was that she messed up. It was the Jeffersons. Coming on Up was from the Jeffersons theme song. So if you don't know who the Jeffersons is, go back and go look at them, and then look at the podcast again. You know what I'm saying?
I'll go look at it. I know what it is already. I see it in my mind. Anywho.
Okay, it's okay. So first question.
What do you look for in a relationship? And again, that can mean whatever comes to you first as far as friendship, family, intimate relationship. But again, I think those can all go hand in hand.
I think for me personally, the first thing is trust,
Mm.
because I am a type of person that I'm an oversharer, for one. I
Mm-hmm.
overshare because I'm getting over people pleasing, and we'll dig into that another time. But because I'm an oversharer, I feel like if I could trust someone with the things that I don't share openly, then you are one step closer to like really being in a close knit type of relationship with me.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I share a lot, even on this platform, like we're on a platform, but there's certain things that it's like that I don't share because I'm not confident enough to share and be that vulnerable. But if I can find, like, if I do, that means I really trust you.
And I ask, this because that's one of the main things, but we know that with trust, it has to be built,
Oh,
right?
for sure.
So, to what extent, where do you see? So, you mentioned, I guess, me being able to give you something and
Yeah.
you holding on to that
Yeah.
and not sharing with others is a way that you build that connection and that trust with somebody
Mm-hmm.
else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, okay.
And especially for me, a lot of my relationships came from work.
Okay.
Because as an adult, like, where are we at most of the time?
Yeah.
If we are not
Work.
out and doing hobbies or things in that sort, like, our main place to kind of grow these relationships are our place of business.
Right, right. Unless,
So
I win the lottery or you win the
yeah,
lottery.
and then we'll just be at home, and then
Yes.
it's just us. But I've already created my circle, so I'm good.
Oh, you're good, good. Okay.
You know what I'm
Gotcha,
saying?
gotcha.
So besides my best friend, which is a family member of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my other that I feel like, and it's only like five. I'm gonna be real. I have five people that I feel like I could call on that has my back.
Yeah.
Right, thick and thin. I could tell them anything. There's no judgment, nothing. But like you said, it was that creating and building that trust, because I met them at work. So it's like, yo, if I could hang with you and I could tell you something and I don't hear it around the entire company, that right. You my people, it literally takes that much. And not that we talking about people that you keep in the midst of us, but if I could come to you having a bad day, but yet I still have to be at work, and you could understand that, I'm trusting you, I'm being vulnerable enough with you that my emotions that I'm showing to you are real,
right,
and that you're keeping that, because right. In the public place that I'm at, that I can't show those things.
Right. Yeah.
So like I could come to you in my place of work being like, girl, man, I need to vent. I need to let it out just for like 4 minutes so I could get back to my job.
Right.
And if I don't hear about that going nowhere else besides what we discussed or what I had to experience with you, like, that's really how I started gaining a lot of my like deep friendships. Right. Is that I was vulnerable at my place of work, and that I was able to go to someone and show them that vulnerability, suck it up, and then go finish up my job.
Right. Interesting.
And it started off with trust. That it really builds off of trust for me. And dang, you really making me, every time we get on here, you be making me think of things, because I'm counting my friends on my hand, and even my friends like way back that I've started relationships with over 20 years ago.
Right.
That wasn't my family member. Like, I met her at work. I met her in a most vulnerable place because I didn't have a car. I was walking to work. I was so upset because it was a snowstorm. This is when we was living in Connecticut. It was a snowstorm and I still had to make it to work. And the buses were late, the taxis were late, everything. So I had to walk to work. Ooh, and okay. I was upset. I remember, I think I was crying, like just walking. Just walking and crying because I had to get to the place where I needed to go.
Yeah.
And she pulled over and picked me up. She was like, "Girl, what's wrong?" And I started spilling out because it wasn't just the snowstorm. Aww. It wasn't just that. It was so much other things that were going on at that same time. And she was there to pick me up. She took me on that ride, and that was the first of many rides. I
That's so
promise you, that was the first
sweet.
of many rides. And this person, I don't even talk to on a day to day basis or on a week basis. We drop in over the last, I want to say she's been in my life for the last almost 15 years. Like, we just drop in on each other.
Yeah, and
And like,
that's another way
yeah.
of knowing that that's a true friendship
Mm-hmm.
when you're able to just not communicate, all the time, and but when you do, it's like it's the you
Yeah.
just been just yesterday,
Yeah.
right?
And it makes me smile. Like, and it does, it's not, and I guess we'll go into that a little, a little deeper too, because there's also levels to your friendships.
Right,
Everybody shouldn't be on the same level.
right,
It's just
right.
like I know the old parable and the old saying of, um, on like friendships are like trees.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Some are your roots, some are your trunks,
Yes. Oh, I
some are
love
your branches, and
that.
some are your leaves. The
Yes.
leaves are what? They're interchangeable. That goes with seasons.
Right. Right.
Your branches, they're different lengths. So that means that in that person, you could go in different directions with them.
Yeah.
That trunk, most of the time that trunk stays there.
Right.
Those are those long relationships.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah. Even
And
family relationships, like
and
we
even
discussed.
family
Yeah.
relationships. And
Yeah.
then those roots don't go anywhere.
Right.
So your relationships are really like a tree if you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's nice that you mentioned, I have 5 good friends. My mom always told me, like, 4 quarters is better than 100 pennies, right?
Oh,
I
yeah,
love
that's
that.
true.
I
That's
say that to
true.
a lot of my clients when they're having difficulty saying, I don't have any friends.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's important to realize, like, if you have a good, solid amount of friends, who have your back, who enhance your life
Yeah.
and doesn't make it worse,
Yeah.
in the sense
Yeah.
where you have to
Yeah.
take care of somebody per se. I think that is really valuable in a
Yeah.
relationship.
Oh, for sure. So what about you? Like what's the thing that you look for in a relationship?
Well, in a relationship, amongst a lot, and everything, I think for me is assertive communication. And I
Okay.
say this only as a therapist. I say this, but also
Assertive communication.
no. I think that often like gets like in the back burner because there's so much
You're right.
passiveness because people are not, and I guess to tie into that connection, vulnerable connections, like you mentioned, being able to be 100% vulnerable and not shielding yourself through passive communication.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm being able to just say, hey, what you said yesterday really made me uncomfortable. And for me to be able to take it on and be like, I hear you. I'm sorry that hurt you. I'll make sure not to do that again without that defense, or instead of that person saying, that really hurt me, being like, oh, what you said yesterday was really just something else, wasn't it? That's very passive. And I think we've learned that in our culture a lot, to be able to be so passive in relationships, never to be very direct with what you mean.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes from, again, I have done that myself, people pleasing. And not wanting to hurt other people's feelings, and but then shutting yourself down at the same time. So I think for me, it's being able to really be very assertive with communications, knowing that I can trust my feelings with you and you're going to protect it, and not shame me or guilt me about these things or be on the defense, and be like in your ego about it. So what I liked about, that part is I've learned that now in my relationships. Actually, I was just talking to you about a friend of mine who I had that conversation with. When she had a problem with me and she was able to just
that was real. That was a real grown conversation. Like that's. Right. I've never even. I loved that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Tell the story.
No,
Tell the story,
I mean, it was just a really great story. She's actually the one who gave us the sign, growing with the green sign.
Thank you.
It was so exciting. I love you. But just being able to, we had a conversation where I had taken something, not even thinking, like consciously thinking about it, but also that was invasion of her privacy, of her stuff, so I didn't know that that was something big for her, but for her to be able to just be on the phone with me and being like, hey, this thing really bothered me because I really wanted it for something. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize that. Completely my bad. She was like, no, no worries. I'm like, no, like I knew where I went wrong with this. I will do better next time, type thing. And then we move forward. It was literally like Nothing.
Yeah.
Then we were laughing it out.
Yeah.
A couple minutes later, it wasn't any resentment towards anything
Mm-hmm.
because I can acknowledge the part where I went wrong, even if there's an explanation for it.
Yeah.
I don't need to explain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to explain what went wrong there. All I need to know is that it bothered her.
Mm-hmm.
I can see how it bothered her, and I will do better next time, and I'll realize better next time.
Yeah. That's really mature.
Maturity, yeah.
Yeah, it's a real mature type of friendship to be able to express yourself in that way and not feel any backlash.
Yes.
And I can definitely co-sign on that because I do have a friend that I feel like I could do that with.
Right.
Like that I'm always apologizing for saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. And sometimes she just look at me and be like, Janae, what you apologizing for things that you can't control? I'm like,
right.
Because I'm used to always being offensive sometimes because my mouth, I have no filter most of the time. What? But I'm trying to learn to have one, right? So that's where the vulnerability comes through too, and having that trust that you're going to tell me when I'm wrong or when I'm wronging you.
Right.
You know, and it doesn't have to be a big blown up thing. Like you said, like your instant, like it wasn't a big thing. She said what she said because she needed you to recognize that it bothered her.
Right.
And exactly. You reciprocated that in a point, like, no, you're right. That wasn't, you know what I'm saying? That wasn't what I should have done.
Yeah.
My bad. Let's move on. And it wasn't like we didn't talk for 15 days or it was like, okay, well, what are we doing tomorrow?
Exactly. Which comes into also that part of that story of then me respecting a boundary that she put up, which is another
boundaries
part.
Is big.
That's a big part. Boundaries
in any relationship, boundaries is a big thing.
Yes. Me being able to tell you this is how I want you to show up in my life is a boundary, right? And it's not of shutting you down and saying no to you, but more so of this is what I need to feel safe in this space with you. And if you can respect that, then I can move forward with you.
So, like with that being said, how do you create healthy boundaries? Because in my journey of relationships, friendships, and things in that sort, I feel that I think that I'm still struggling with boundaries. Right. Because I also feel like if I don't know where a boundary is with me, I shut down. Right. And then that goes where I won't talk to you or I won't respond because I think I've done something out of line.
Right.
And so how do you navigate that?
Well, I think you start off by understanding what boundaries are, much like what I mentioned earlier. Being able to understand the boundaries to keep you in my life. Okay. And for me to feel safe and comfortable with you. If I don't state something that makes me feel uncomfortable, then what is this really? Is this really a friendship? And I think that goes back to that people pleasing that we're still working on. I am a recovering people pleaser myself.
You better be recovering people pleaser. Me too, baby. Well, I'm a working recovering people pleaser.
I really think that it's really hard because, again, from our conversation from the last episode that we have, being able to put others before ourselves a lot of the time. So now being able to now put ourselves first, right? Our needs first, you know, when it comes to a friendship. And understanding that, it'll make it easier for you to say, I'm placing this here, not because I don't like you or like the things that you do, but more so that some things might make me feel uncomfortable that I don't want to be in a relationship for. And if that just goes to show that even with you putting boundaries in your life, doesn't mean that that person is going to actually respect
follow those boundaries. Yeah.
And I think understanding also that risk. Of you might have to lose this person will help, you know, put those into perspective, right?
That's pretty deep. Like, and that also, I guess, can go back to when we were talking about the self-acceptance.
Right.
When I learned how to accept myself, it didn't matter. So I had to let other people go that didn't accept what I accepted. because that was me.
Yes.
So that goes into our friendships and our relationships as well.
Yeah, similar to what I mentioned to you about my self-love and acceptance, where I felt like I was a chameleon, right? Yeah. Going into everybody else. If everybody else likes this about me, then I like myself. But I was really just going on a big rabbit hole of just continuing to not feel comfortable in my own skin. So I think it's really good to put that into perspective. Like, what are you losing in not putting those boundaries up, and what are you gaining? In putting
so all of that goes together. Being able to be to have that self-love that we talked about, because if you did not have that self-love, you would let people treat you any way that they wanted to treat you, because you wouldn't know how to create those boundaries. Give me a hand applaud. I'm just saying. Connecting the dots. Yes, I am. Thank you, Mrs. Green. Thank you.
So you said you're still struggling in putting those boundaries up.
Yeah.
So does this help you a little bit on how take the next step?
It does. It really does.
Shift perspective.
Yeah, because that comes along with me dropping my people pleasing, because my biggest thing is hurting other people.
Right.
Like, I don't want to say this, I don't want to do this because I don't want to hurt their feelings.
Right.
But if you down for me, like you say you down for me, and that we already have this bond, then me setting up a boundary of like, it shouldn't be a problem.
Right.
It should be okay. And if you have a problem with that boundary that I'm setting up with you, that could be a conversation. And that's where it goes to the communication, not the passive communication.
Right.
So that goes into that communication that you were talking about, of just being upfront and honest about things.
And that's who who your people are. That's who then.
And that's why I have 5.
Exactly.
Like, literally, I could, if I would shout them out because I have 5. And it started from, like, I feel like my biggest supporter, which is odd. I'm gonna say this real quick, and I don't want her hair to get all bumped up. Probably my mother is my first best friend.
Yeah.
And I would say that for the simple fact is my whole childhood. If anybody knows a black mama, what is their quote? You know it? I ain't your friend, I'm your mama.
Oh, yeah.
That was the biggest thing is me growing up. But my mother definitely turned into one of my best friends.
As an adult, right?
As an adult. Because I had to realize the things that she went through, the things that I went through because of the things she went through.
Right.
And that made us bond, trauma bond, but it created a bond that we're now at the age of me being 40 and her being 70, came to clarity about some of our similarities outside of that trauma that we dealt with back in our past.
Which is then maybe a healing trauma bond, where it was the trauma, you're bonding based on that, but you're bonding based on the healing journey that you guys are both having within that. So that's a connection that's very positive.
Yeah.
Right? And that's long lasting as well.
Very, very much so.
Yes.
Very much so. And I guess I am doing better with boundaries, because for her to be like a best friend of mine, but still my mother, there's also boundaries that have to be set into place with that relationship within inside of itself.
Yeah, so. And that person might not like it at the moment. They'll respect it. They might not like it, but that's totally okay. They have their feelings too. And I was going to say onto that too, that there's levels too, where you have people in your life who might need to take a pause from you for a bit and then reconnect. I have, similar to you, my best friend is also my family member as well. And there was periods of times when we were in maybe our worst spots, I can say, including myself, that I was in a really bad place where I didn't treat her as she should be treated, right?
Okay.
Similar to her, back and forth, right? We were going through eggshells pretty much with ourselves. And then, but it was my family member. No matter what, I'm going to love her no matter what.
Blood thicker than water.
But now we're even closer because we were able to self-reflect on the things that we went wrong, or perhaps we're not acknowledging, and how it was hurting our relationship.
Okay.
And now our friendship, I feel, is stronger than ever.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely stronger than ever. So
because blood is not thicker than water.
No,
sometimes.
It's not.
And that's what I also want to say. Don't think just because you may have a really close family member, and because I do have one close family member that is my best friend, but that is always a family that has to have that great relationship with, because it's really not.
Right.
It's
exactly.
really not.
Yeah. And even like you said, some family members you have to cut off if they're not respecting
That's them leaves.
Your boundaries. Yes.
That's them leaves. Why? Because it's seasonal.
For sure.
So they have to fall off for a minute.
And I can love you and not like you, if that makes sense. Or like what you're doing. I have love for you. Like. Right? You're my family member, I have love for you. But I cannot let you inside my life that I've built a safety in. Right? Yeah.
So I think that may be a next topic. Like family. Oof. Right? Yeah, I definitely feel like this is just a part 1 to this discussion.
For sure.
I feel like that there's a lot more that we can discuss and given strategies on how to make sure we know how to positively put in those boundaries, even talking more about communication and how do we do that with the people that we love. So yeah, let's do a part 2.
Part 2.
Right?
Yeah, no, definitely a part 2 is needed because I guess just talking about it now made us think like we are also a work in progress in this. So how are we able to navigate maybe some conflict resolution on some of the current issues we might be having, or even if you're having any issues, how do we work through those issues to connect with our friendships?
So I think we're gonna leave it like where it is. I want all of us to kind of sit and think over the next couple weeks as we come back on this topic of building positive, healthy relationships. On our next show, like kind of just think about the relationships that you have in your life, whether it's work relationships, family relationships, your partner, your spouse, whatever type of relationships that are in your life right now. Kind of sit back and evaluate all of them. See what part of the tree that these people that you consider friends, family, what part of the tree are they falling on for you?
Yeah, and I think initially just where it stems from. I feel a lot of people are going to talk about their family relationships because that seems to be almost all around a lot of conflict around family and boundaries and things. So where it stems from and where it is now, your growth through it too is also important.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so sit and think about some of these things over the next couple of weeks as we do as well. Like I said, I'm still a work in progress.
Yes,
like this is still a journey for me because I don't want to lose the friends that I do have and that I consider that are my girls, So in order for me not to lose those type of bonds, I have to continuously do more work on myself and figure out. So this is helpful for me. Like some of the stuff that you were spitting today, Mrs. Green, let me tell you, you definitely made me think about some stuff.
Yes.
Besides you. Yeah.
So sweet.
I'll be trying. See, I got that part, I think I got the
Anywho, that's my word.
That's her word to cut me off.
Anywho.
It's all right.
Thank you for tuning in.
Yo.
Make sure to share, follow,
subscribe. Yo, get on following up. Make sure you share this, y'all. We are talking about some good stuff. And whatever we are talking about that you want more of, yo, drop in that comment box. Let us know what you want to talk about. And we may, do a little shout out to you and all that good stuff. So thanks for showing up again.
See you next time.
And continue that journey. Hey, growing with the greens, baby. Deuces.